Okay, good evening, welcome, thank you all for coming. What I want to share, you should have a sheet in front of you, you should have two sheets. The first sheet is entitled the Maharal on Eruv Tavshilin. If you're listening online, then please email me at j.golker@gmail.com and I'll send you the handout. This year we are privileged to make Eruv Tavshilin 3 times. That means Erev Rosh Hashanah, we're familiar with it. Rosh Hashanah this year fell on a Thursday and a Friday. And again, this coming week, in Mitzvah Hashem, Sukkot falls on a Thursday, Friday, and then again the second day is also. So on the Wednesday we do Eruv Tavshilin. So what I'd like to do, just as a starter, is to share with you, first of all, just the background, what's going on, but more importantly, to share with you an astonishing Maharal I came across, which sheds new light on Eruv Tavshilin, and it's just fascinating. But what's the background? Why do we do Eruv Tavshilin? What is it all about? So, if you take a look at the first box, the Pasuk says in Parshas Bo that when it comes to Yom Tov, it's like Shabbos. All the things that you can't do on Shabbos, you can't do on Yom Tov, with one major exception, and that is cooking. Eichel nefesh. The Pasuk says, Kol melacha lo ye'osa bohem, no work can be done. Ach asher ye'ochel lechol nefesh, but anything which can be eaten for any person, hu levada ye'osa lachem, that alone can be done for you. That's the famous pasuk of Eichel Nefesh, the Heta of Eichel Nefesh, to cook on Yom Tov, which we're familiar with, and you can cook therefore and bake on Yom Tov. Now, what's important to understand is that you can only cook on Yom Tov for Yom Tov. You cannot cook, you can't say to yourself, you know what, I've got time on Yom Tov afternoon, perfect, let's stock up the freezer. Let's start cooking. I've got a couple of weeks ahead. I'm busy at work. I'll start cooking for Chol. That is not allowed. That is an Issa D'Oraisa to cook on Yom Tov for the weekday. What about cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos? So this year, for example, let's say Friday, you want to start cooking. You want to, put a cholent on. You want to make a kigel or whatever, something like that. Can you make the cholent on Friday for Shabbos? Min HaTorah, you're allowed to. However, Midrabanon, Chazal say don't. Why not? The Gemara in Beitza gives 2 reasons. The Rambam paskins one of the reasons. Take a look at the second box. The Rambam says, Yom Tov shechol yos erev Shabbos, like it does this year. Yom Tov falls on a Friday. Ein oifen umavashlim b'Yom Tov, mashu oichel l'macha b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to cook or bake what you need on Friday for Shabbos the next day. V'isazem midivrei seifrim. This is only midrabanon. It's not also min HaTorah. Because if people will remind themselves, hey, I mustn't cook on Friday, Yom Tov, for Shabbos, then they'll certainly remember that they can't cook for Chol. As he puts it, Shekal v'chomehu, l'Shabbos ein mevashel koshken l'Chol, and therefore it's like a safeguard that you can't cook on Friday for Shabbos, lefichach, and therefore, since it's midrabanon, the same rabbis who made the whole concept of Eruv Tavshilin say that if you started the cooking process on before Yom Tov, i.e. Wednesday, then you're allowed to. The fichach, third line of the Rambam, im osa tavshil me'erev Yom Tov, if you began cooking on Erev Yom Tov, sheyeh soymech olav mevashel v'ofer b'Yom Tov, l'Shabbos harizeh mutar, so that you've begun the cooking process and you can continue, as it were, on Friday, or Thursday or Friday, for Shabbos, that would be okay. The Tavshil zeh shesemech alav hu hanikra Eruv Tavshilin. That's called Eruv Tavshilin. Therefore, in the Jewish homes around the world this Wednesday, the people will be putting together one baked item and one cooked item. The baked item is normally a roll or a matzah or a bagel or something like that, and the cooked item is normally a boiled egg, a bit of fish or meat or something, and you have started your preparations, as it were, even though you may not have baked the matzah yourself. But you've put it aside, and that's considered ready for Shabbos, and therefore that enables you to begin to continue, as it were, cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos. That's really what Eruv Tavshilin is about, and therefore you'll be getting lots of WhatsApp messages on Wednesday. Don't forget Eruv Tavshilin. People put it on their status, and if you forget to put it on your status, you can be somech on another person putting it on their status. So don't worry about that. Okay. So that's just the background to Eruv Tavshilin. However, as ever with most things, there are layers and layers, and the Maharal sort of reveals something astonishing about Eruv Tavshilin. He bases it on a Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos darshans a pasuk in Koheles. Says the Gemara in Shabbos, Kufnun Aleph on the base. Va'af Shlomo Omer b'chochmasei. Shlomo HaMelech, author of Koheles, says in his wisdom, V'zocher es beirecha b'mei b'churesecha. You should remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Ad asher lo yavo yemei hara, before the bad days come. What is that referring to? Eli mei zikna. Old age is challenging. V'higiu shonim asher toma ein li bohem chefetz. And the Koheles continues, and there will be days where a person will say, I have no desire for them. Elu yemei HaMashiach. That is a reference to Messianic times, she'ein bohem lo zechus v'lo chayva, where there is no zechus v'chayva, which is again a whole discussion on what exactly that means. Pliga de Shmuel, the Gemara continues, because Shmuel says there's no difference between Yemei Mashiach, and nowadays it's just that there'll be blissful times, no wars, no poverty, no illness, etc., etc. Okay. Either way, the Maharal expounds on this concept of Zecheres Berecha B'mei B'churesecha. Work hard when you're young, and remember Hashem, as it were, in your early days. What does that mean? Says the Maharal, this is in Netzach Yisrael. It's paragraph 3. V'lokach, hakos of mazhir adam. The Torah warns, the Koheles, Shlomo HaMelech warns a person, she'et tzaddik kodem she'eskal Mashiach. It's very important you become a tzaddik, i.e. you behave righteously, you keep mitzvahs before Mashiach comes, she'oz bevadai efsha she'achoti yachza b'tshuva. Because pre-Mashiach, it's possible to do tshuva. Avalimos Mashiach lo yochel asos tshuva. But when Mashiach comes, it's too late. It's a bit like, the Gemara says, and he brings this later, the Gemara says that there'll be no possibility of Geirim when Mashiach comes. Why? Because everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. It will be so blissful, it'll be so wonderful. Who wouldn't want to join the winning team? So therefore, there's no Geirim. In the same way, the Gemara says there were no Geirim in the times of Shlomo HaMelech as well. Why not? Because the times of Shlomo HaMelech were so wonderful. That's as close as we've ever got to Messianic times. When we say the beautiful pasuk, we say a lot, bring back the good old days. Which days are we referring to? We're referring to the times of Shlomo HaMelech, because that was the closest we've ever got to Messianic times. So, the Gemara says in those times, everyone wanted to join the Jewish people, but it wasn't clear they were doing it l'shem shamayim. It wasn't for altruistic reasons. So, therefore, everyone will be clear when Mashiach comes what the truth is, the authenticity and the beauty of Torah. So then it's too late to do tshuva. Second line, avalim kvahu tzaddik. But if a person is living a life of Torah and mitzvahs, oz bevadai efshe sheikne shleimus u'mal yoseh, if he is a tzaddik, i.e., as I say, keeping mitzvahs before Mashiach comes, then when Mashiach comes, life will carry on, and you will still be able to continue to do mitzvahs, and be able to be mesaken and be mashlim yourself, and perfect yourself. V'hadas nosen kein, and it makes logical sense. Ki ein yimei Mashiach she'holim sichli legamrei. It's not sort of this spiritual, intellectual world. V'yu k'mei malachim nivdolim. We're not like angelic. Shari yu ochlim v'shoisim. We'll eat and we'll drink, and the sun will rise and the sun will set. It's not like the world to come. Olam haba is a different state than Mashiach. And therefore, in the times of Mashiach, it's possible to progress spiritually. It's just that he's not going to make these 180-degree turns from being a tzaddik to a rasha or vice versa. Next paragraph. Because if a person is wicked all his days, and he sees all the wonders and the fantastic things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for Klal Yisrael, for sure he'll want to do tshuva. Again, he's joining the winning team. Who won't want to be on the winning team? And therefore, doing tshuva at that stage is not called proper tshuva. And therefore the pasuk says, do tshuva before Mashiach comes. Because that's called tshuva shlema. But doing tshuva once Mashiach has already come, that's not called tshuva. Okay, good. Avo. But if someone is a tzaddik all his days, he's not doing good things because he's just joining a winning team. He was good before Mashiach came. And therefore he'll continue to progress, to keep Torah, to keep mitzvahs, and to perfect himself and to continue to get schar for his correct choices. Now, that's the background. V'yesh lefarish, next paragraph. Ki zeh inyan mitzvahs Erev Tavshilin. This is exactly what Erev Tavshilin is. What? Erev Tavshilin? My boiled egg and a matzah? What's that got to do with this? Sheyom Tov hasomach l'Shabbos. What happens when Yom Tov is juxtaposed to Shabbos? Meniach Erev Tavshilin me'boyediyim kodim Yom Tov. We put aside an Erev Tavshilin before Yom Tov. Ve'oz af b'Yom Tov yochel esakin machol l'Shabbos. And then on Yom Tov you can prepare for Shabbos. Ki mashet tzorich l'sakin suda Shabbos kodim Shabbos. Because preparing food for Shabbos remezu shah Shabbos me'inyan olam haba. Shabbos, we say it, don't we? Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. It's a smell, it's a taste of the world to come. You know, the Gemara often gives examples that when something is a 60th of something, it's a smell of, a taste of. For example, the Gemara says that sleep is a 60th of death. Right? They say in the yeshivas that, you know, the yeshiva bachrim joke. Can you imagine how geshmak death is? If sleep is a 60th, then we know how geshmak sleep is. Right? That's the yeshiva joke. But the point is, it's the smell of. Bittul is 60. When you have more than 60, it's not even, you can't, it's gone. But when you have a 60th or something, so therefore Shabbos is, you get a sense of the peace, of the arriving, you're there, they know it's to run to. Umisha Torach be'erev Shabbos. Now, Erev Shabbos, it's busy, isn't it? Umisha Torach be'erev Shabbos, yechel b'Shabbos. Someone who prepares on Erev Shabbos, he'll have what to eat on Shabbos. Umisha Torach be'erev Shabbos, ma yechel. If a guy didn't get around to preparing for Shabbos, then it's too late. No chulant, no urn, no anything. If you didn't prepare and put it on before Shabbos, you're stuck. Misha Tarek, but what's it meant to teach us? Not so this week you'll go without chulant. But it's meant to teach us Misha Tarach be'erev Shabbos, i.e. in this world, Yochel b'Shabbos. That's the point. There are a lot of symbolisms for this, by the way. That's why, for example, there's a halacha that you should try and trim your nails before Shabbos. When you trim your nails, try and do it before Shabbos, the halacha says. Why Erev Shabbos? Because that's part of the process of preparing the body for his ultimate resting, is that process. So it's a reminder, it's a weekly reminder. There's lots of allusions to this, not for now. Anyway, V'Yom Tov HaSomach LaShabbos, next paragraph. V'Yom Tov HaSomach LaShabbos, when you have Yom Tov, which is next to Shabbos on a Thursday, Friday, like it is this year, Hem Yomim Tovim Sheyesh LaOdom. Those are the good days, Yom Tov. That's referring to the good days of a person. K'mo Yemei HaMashiach, i.e. when Mashiach comes, life is going to be wonderful. It's bliss. V'chol Yomim Tovim Sheyesh LaOdom, like all the good days in a person's life. V'oz lo yivasher b'tchila bohem l'Shabbos, and therefore you're not allowed to cook on a Yom Tov for Shabbos. She'ein Yom Tov meichin l'Shabbos, like the Gemara says in Beitz, Daf Beis on Beis. Yom Tov you're not allowed to prepare for Shabbos. She'ein mesakin boy, b'yimos HaMashiach she'ein Yom Tovim, and therefore in the Messianic days in Yemei Mashiach, which is akin to Yom Tov, Aisha Yom Tovim she'esh l'Adam, all the good days that a person experiences. Think about all the wonderful days, the best days in your life. Put them all together in like one stream of 2 months. Your best holidays, the day you got your fantastic, passed your A-levels, you passed your driving test, you had a niece is born, a nephew is born. Put all those wonderful days together, the Moshe Mashiach is going to be just a series of just wonderful days. But once Mashiach has come, you can't then prepare on Yemei HaMashiach for Elam Haba. Because you can't join the winning team, like we said. Do you understand? So the Maharal is saying something so geshmak. The parallel is this. Erev Tavshilin, you're not allowed to prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. You've got to prepare before Yom Tov begins. So too, the analogy is, Yom Tov is like Yemos HaMashiach, they're the good days. Shabbos is like Olam Haba. Wednesday, Erev Yom Tov, you are allowed to prepare. If you begin preparing then I can prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Beautiful analogy. And therefore, just like on Erev Tavshilin, I prepare before Yom Tov to enable me to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Well, so too, if I've worked hard in this world pre-Moshiach, and I therefore have become a tzaddik, living a life of Torah and keeping mitzvahs, then if I continue to do so, I will continue to do so in Yemei Mashiach, and I will get schar for that, which enables me to get ultimately Olam Haba. That's the point. That's the analogy. Continuing the Maharal, this explains what the Gemara says in Yuma. Listen to this. This is astonishing. Avram Avinu kept afilu Eruv Tavshilin. The Gemara says in Yuma there, it says v'soyroisoi echod divrei Torah v'echod divrei sofrim. That Avram Avinu kept everything, not only the Torah mitzvahs, but even the drabonon mitzvahs. V'lama amru dafka mitzvahs. He says he even kept Eruv Tavshilin. So why, of all the mitzvahs drabonans, you pick out this one? What does Eruv Tavshilin got to do with Avram Avinu? The point is that Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah. So what's it telling us? The analogy is this, so geschmack. Avram Avinu, his days were good. You know, we say in Benching, Bakol Mikol Kol. Bakol is a reference to the great days that Avram Avinu had. You think about it, Avram Avinu's life, everything was fine. In other words, yes, he had challenges at the beginning, but in his later years, for example, Esav, when did Esav go off the rails? He went off only after Avram died. The whole story with Yaakov and Esav buying the lentils, when did that happen? On the day Avram died. Yeah, Esav when he was 15, that's when it all kicked in. He died 5 years early, so he shouldn't see that. So his later years, his life was wonderful. He didn't have the difficulties that Yaakov and Yitzchak had. Yitzchak had a challenging life. The Yaakov Omer kel shakai, i.e. Misha Omer le'olam dai yom le'tzaras idai. He says enough tzaras. Yaakov's life was full, one after the other, with tzaras. Shema olam lo noch. He never rested from his difficulties. The lochein hoy ba'Avram, says the Maharal. But with Avram, it wasn't the same. Shemeis b'yeshiv b'seva tova. Sorry, he died an old age in a pleasant life. Like I expanded on my other work in Gvuras Hashem. And therefore, the Gemara says that's what he means when he kept Erev Tavshilin. What does that mean? All of his life was on this way. He had his challenges. He was thrown into the Kivshin Ha'esh. We know he had 10 tests. So he did that. He passed his tests. In other words, Avram Avinu is a perfect example of this. He worked very, very hard. He passed his 10 tests in this world, as it were. He then experienced wonderful days, Hashem Berach Avram Bakol, which is akin to the Yemos HaMashiach at the end of his life. And also, and then his later years, he was able to sort of compound and build on that shleimus to prepare him ultimately for the world to come. So you see that Avram Avinu is a perfect example of exactly this point. In other words, says the Maharal, the idea of Erev Tavshilin, so beautiful, is that Erev Tavshilin you cannot cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. You have to start cooking beforehand. That is an analogy of how life is going to play out. If a person works hard now, pre-Moshiach, then he will continue to get reward during the times of Moshiach. If he's a Rasha now, he can't just change his mind come Moshiach. There's no tshuva then. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not Mekabel Gerim in the times of Shlomo HaMelech or in the times of Yemos HaMashiach. The Gemara says, he goes on to say, the Gemara says in Yevom, it's Mekabel Gerim Yemos HaMashiach. You can't accept Gerim in the times of Mashiach because who doesn't want to join? And therefore, the idea is, says the Maharal, that if a person works hard pre-Moshiach, he will be able to get schar when Moshiach comes, by keeping mitzvahs, by being mashlim, by finishing and perfecting himself, and then he will merit to go to the world to come. That really is what Erev Tavshilin is teaching me. So therefore, Mitzvah Hashem, when this Tuesday and Wednesday we all get our WhatsApp reminders, don't forget Erev Tavshilin, there's two aspects to that. There's the very technical one, don't forget to boil an egg, or 3, and take a matzah out of the box, or a piece of challah, or a roll, or whatever, and put that aside and make the bracha as we know how to. But more importantly, perhaps, is to understand the deeper message. The deeper message is that if a person works hard before Mashiach comes, then when Mashiach comes, then he will be able to continue to expand and compound that correct path in order to ultimately earn Olam Haba.